Hello, this week's episode of the podcast is coming to you from LA. I'm on Santa Monica Pier, and there's Venice Beach down there, and there's a whole big fun fair and all sorts of attractions. We've just finished Route 66 a couple of days ago. We've been having a bit of a chill out in LA since then, caught some music last night and some food, and it's all been absolutely killer. I've got a couple more of the travelogues to write up, which I'll be putting on the website quite soon. And then back home tomorrow. So I thought I'd try and get a podcast away this week before I left, and that's exactly what I'm doing. The boys are up the other end of the pier waiting for me to join them, so I'm going to sling it. And it just remains to be said, thanks very much for all the nice things you've said about the travelogues. I've really enjoyed writing them. And through the magic of television, here's one I made earlier. Back to the studio. Hello, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for coming back and tuning in, subscribing and all of that. And also thanks for supporting the podcast in whatever way you have been with your tweets and with Facebook, people going to the support page on the website and doing a little bit there. It's all really well appreciated, and I know I say thanks every week, but I really do mean it. It means a lot. And I'm just happy that that people are liking what I'm doing, and that you're getting something out of it. That's kind of the point. This week on the podcast, we've got a couple of different things. The first thing that we've got is something that I kind of call magic notes, which is just my little freaky name for it. And then the other thing is the importance of knowing what your notes are within a scale and hitting root notes, and how you can make your solo sound loads better, like really professional. You can sound like you know what you're doing a lot by doing these two things. So the magic notes is kind of in response to who was it? I think it was Jack, who sent a message in on Facebook and was asking about ways of making stuff that he was playing sound more interesting. I think he was talking about his composition and his lead playing both. So this will kind of approach the lead playing side of it, and maybe a little bit of the composition side of it as well. The thing to bear in mind is that the most popular scale that gets used most of the time, I make these massive sweeping statements, don't I? But in my experience with guitarists that I've met, the scale that gets used more than any other is the minor pentatonic. If you go to a jam night, if you watch people playing blues or rock or metal, they're going to use the minor pentatonic when they're soloing, and they're going to overuse it because it's the easiest scale to play, really. So let me show you some of that. So if I was to play through the minor pentatonic, you've probably heard a lot of soloing. You know, the generic sort of guitar solo stuff using the minor pentatonic is very, very, very popular. But we learnt some other scales a couple of podcasts ago. We learnt the minor blues, the natural minor, and the Dorian. Now, when I talk about magic notes, it's stupidly simple, really. If the minor pentatonic is the most popular scale that people use, as far as I'm concerned, then that means that if you just use those notes, you're going to sound like everybody else, right? And you've probably noticed, I don't know if you have noticed or not, but the other three scales that we learned, the minor blues, the Dorian, and the natural minor, all use the same notes as the minor pentatonic. They've all got them in. If you think about the minor blues, it's exactly the same apart from those two notes. If you think about the natural minor, one note on each string is different, pretty much, apart from one string that's only got two notes on. So that note's different. That note's different. Those two are the same. That note's different. That note's different. Same with the Dorian. With the Dorian scale, there's on the E and the B string, the 7th fret's different, the 4th fret's different. So you've got these notes that I call magic notes because they're the notes that don't appear in the minor pentatonic, and that means that when you land on them, you're going to sound special, right? You're going to be playing notes that don't make you sound like you were sounding before. So if I play through the minor pentatonic that you've heard a million times, if I now play that with the blues note in there, you get those extra quirky notes coming out that don't sound the same as they did before. They've got a little bit of a different flavour to them. Same with the natural minor. If I play the minor pentatonic, sorry, I threw in an F sharp there, which wasn't supposed to be in there. So that's the minor pentatonic. Now I'll put in the notes from the natural minor. So those notes really give it a minor flavour. They give it a completely different sound. And the same with the Dorian. Here's the minor pentatonic again. Now with the Dorian. So that's really leaning on those notes. So that's the first thing, is the idea of magic notes, and falling on those notes that are different from the ones. You know, a lot of people play through the scale and think, oh, it sounds the same. 2/3 of it is the same. But if you focus on that third that's different, you're going to get a real cool sound. And the other thing to bear in mind is bending those notes makes them even better. So when I discovered this, I killed this. I did this so much when I was younger, when I used to play in bands and stuff. I figured this out and I just did it all the time. So if you're playing along with a tune that's got some nice sort of chords in, and then you bend those different notes from the natural minor. Get a really distinctive sound, and it's got that nice sort of minor ballad sound. You can play it in faster stuff as well. If you're doing something that's a bit jazzy and you want a little bit of a funky sound, throwing in those Dorian notes. I always mix the blues note in with stuff as well, because I just like the sound of it. So that's the magic notes thing. Get used to just the differences between the scales, rather than relying on the minor pentatonic all the time, because it becomes a bit of a crutch. So that's the first thing. The second thing the next thing is the idea of falling on root notes within the scale when you're soloing. This is massive. This is one of the coolest things. If I play a generic solo, so I'm going to think of some chords and play along with them, but just use the scale. Okay, so I'll use the natural minor and the blues and the minor pentatonic. Okay, so I'm thinking of some chords and I'm going to solo along with them, and I want you to just listen to this for a minute. So that all sounded pretty much like it was in A. It didn't change very much when I was hitting anything, because I wasn't aiming for the notes in the chords. I was just imagining what the chords were, and then I was just soloing along with them. This time I'm going to aim for the notes that are in the chords. So now you should hear the chords pop out. You should actually hear a hint of which chord I'm playing along with. Let's see if that works. So. So hopefully when I'm playing that, you can hear the chords popping out a little bit more. That's just a generic bit of a solo. But when it went to an F chord, I was coming down the F chord in that area, which was the C shape from the cage system that we did last podcast, I think it was. So I aimed for that note, landed on that F note, and really nailed it when I imagined the change. Then I kind of traced my way up a D minor chord, doing a little arpeggio, and arpeggio is just when you play the chord one note at a time, basically. So I just played one note at a time from the D minor, same from the E minor. When it came to the G, I highlighted some of the G chord. So there's two really important factors here. One of them is you've got to know what chords are playing when you're doing a solo. If you're just playing a minor pentatonic over a solo and you're not thinking about the chords, then you're not engaging with the music. You're just kind of playing all over it rather than playing with what's going on. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you've then got to know where the notes are on your guitar which correlate to those chords. So if you're playing A minor, F, and say C, then you've got to know that, well, for the A minor you can hit your A notes, or you can hit any of the notes from that A minor chord. For the F, you can hit your F note or any of the notes through the F chord, and then from the C, you can hit the C note or any of the notes through the C chord. So this idea of taking the cage system that we had before, I've kind of moved it, tried to think about it in one place is the best way that I can describe this without going too detailed. I'll get into a bit more of this over the coming weeks. This makes up a massive part of the way I think about soloing. And I think a lot of guitarists think in this way as well, because it just means that you're engaging with the chords that are happening. It can make you sound more melodic, it can be more interesting, and this will, out of all the things that I think you can do, thinking about the chords that are playing behind your solo and then nailing the root notes or nailing the arpeggios in that way, I think makes a massive difference. I think that you'll get a lot out of doing that. I certainly do. It changed the way that I play. So that, along with the magic notes kind of angle that we had before, magic notes is a bit more of a simple, quick way of getting the juice out of the scale, and this is a little bit more of a more solid way of connecting with the chord progression or the song that you're playing along with. So have a practice with this. I hope you enjoy it. Once again, thank you very much for all your support on the podcast. And this podcast is over. I will see you next week. Take it easy.